Okay, so keep in mind that they're changing my voice. Now, in regards to this shooting in Minneapolis, I have important information. These shootings are more connected than you think they are. I think most of you understand by now that technology is being used in a way that is commonly understood and that is violating your constitutional rights. Okay, we see the stories about DARPA and other groups that are looking into brain hacking and that obviously are beta testing brain hacking technologies and have other technologies that they've had for years. And so we know that the government likes to pick on black people, other minorities, like to pick on gang members. They like to pick on white people who are poor and who seem like they're troubled, who may have mental health issues. They like to experiment on them. We saw that with the various government projects and experiments and operations that have been declassified over the years. Most of you probably don't understand that the phrase MK Ultra is called Ram Scramble. But most of you probably do understand that non-consensual human experimentation is illegal as hell and causing there to be mass shootings, for the purpose of bringing in more control, for the purpose of deciding who gets to have guns and who doesn't, who gets concealed carry permits, who doesn't, who gets to have an AR and who doesn't, what states, what individuals, what groups. It's very pitiful, very immature. What you see going on here has everything to do with my story. When I was talking about the shooting this occurred in Georgia, it was at a Rappy High School or something, right near Atlanta, I believe it was. There was, I said that the Masons were involved before it came out that one of the victims' name was Mason, and the next day or so it came out that they had a police recording of this gentleman, and on his door, of all things, was a G. Now, this is not the same as conspiracy theory. These are the facts here. If we can show that there's a certain pattern that is consistent with a deep state game being played, then the logical assumption, the overwhelmingly logical assumption is that that pattern reflects calculated and organized behavior. So I hope you all understand that. And I'm not some crazy conspiracy theorist. I deal in facts. Anyone who talks about things like this, who looks at things and studies them carefully and applies critical thinking masterfully and understands the phrase deductive reasoning, must look at this thing and describe it in a way that is factual, in a way that is mostly, if not completely, scientific, that is logical and respectable. If you describe it in a way that is crazy, if you don't do your due diligence, you're not doing the topic justice. And mass shootings absolutely connect to the fact that 9 million people starve to death every year, 3 million children, starve to death or die of hunger-related issues, according to the United Nations website. Not according to some random website or some disinformation, that is out there on some, website of ill repute, but what is considered perhaps the authority of sources when it comes to these things, the United Nations website. So you must understand references and sources. You must understand what the enemy is trying to do. Why were these people killed? There's cultural reasons. First and foremost, gangs, the gangs we have here, and the mass shooters we have here were made in America. Why doesn't this problem occur in other countries to the same degree? Why is it so distinctly American? When Crips and Bloods came out in America, why did they spread around the world? Why are there Crips and Bloods in Canada? Even in Asia. Why? In the islands. You have to understand cause and effect. What is the root of the problem? What is the underlying cause? What is the formula that's being used by the corporate partners, the transnational corporations, and the conglomerates? Who am I? That is very, very key in this. But first you need to understand why that this is happening, and people refuse to process what's going on in a way that causes them to assemble. We are supposed to have the freedom of assembly here in America. We're supposed to have freedom of speech. We're supposed to have the right to protest, especially over what is right, without the government interfering. And a lot of these shootings connect to the internet. They connect to so-called, toxic ideologies that are affecting our youth, that are causing them to disassociate and do these things. But where do these philosophies ultimately come from? These philosophies ultimately come from the governing class and the intelligence apparatus, the military-industrial complex. They come from people who are in cults and social clubs with a calculated plan that has to do with social engineering and controlling dating and reproduction. Who controls the dating sites? Who exactly? And who are their corporate partners? And what is their plan for the world? If you ask the right questions, you see that the pattern is clear. The G on his door, the guy named Mason, that's not a coincidence. The look in the eyes of children these days, this trance-like occult look we see, that's not a coincidence. The soul of America, was never a super vibrant soul, but there was some hope there. The hope is rapidly dwindling away. The heavenly light is dimming. And why? Because of greed. Because of church agendas, corporate agendas, political agendas. Because of governing class narcissism, because of Greco-Roman mythology, and people who try to live that with their fancy statues and houses while people starve. Because hate begets hate, because in the absence of righteous indignation, the only resentment that's there is toxic hate. And so when you wage a war on quote-unquote hate and you only target righteous indignation and some forms of hate that aren't compatible with your agenda, what happens? Gangs. Violence, mass shooting. Don't you people see what's going on here? If my freedom of assembly was secured, my freedom of speech, the youth would look up to me, not to the people who they're looking up to. Reckless rock stars and rap stars, Slipknot, Lady Gaga, politicians who just tell lies. They're looking up to liars and thieves and child molesters and people in sex cults. All these celebrities get in trouble, right? Allison Mack, Keith Rainier, from their sex cult. Puff Daddy, Bill Cosby, on and on and on. And why do they have certain characteristics? Why do they throw in people who have certain Jewish characteristics under the bus and people who have certain black characteristics under the bus? Because they're trying to put it in your head that certain types of white Jews and LGBT people are superior, and when it comes to minorities, they're trying to put in your head that certain minority types are superior to reinforce the pre-existing social order. Let's face it, there is no one in popular culture whose image is that great. Nobody. But yet, that doesn't stop them from massacring and raping and killing because they're sadistic first. They don't actually have a logical image campaign going. They're first and foremost sexually sadistic. They're narcissistic. They're reckless and illogical. But when you have enough Ivy League people helping you out, they come up with a calculated plan nonetheless. Why did this shooting occur? Compared to the 9 million people who are going to die of hunger-related issues this year alone, in the next 365 days alone, this shooting is a minor incident. It's almost a matter of who cares. But when you look at the pattern, it's clear that it really matters. Something like 189,000 people or so die every single day. Only 2 people died in that incident. Should we stop everything and say, oh my gosh, about the 2 and ignore the 189,000? So why does society respond that way? Why don't they look at the bigger picture, at the underlying cause? Why don't they watch my story and my playlist is as proof that I am the idea that Christ is superimposed on? Why do they live in a fairy realm? When they think of love or God, they think of it in a fairy manner and not in a real potent, natural and honestly true and must be true, universal manner, universal pinpoint and moral precision and focused moral intensity should reign in their hearts and souls and minds. Why do they follow the crowd instead? And if you're the richest person in the world, or you're the head of a church or something else, It is not in your best interest to lie about who I am or to cover up who I am. People are dying, first and foremost, because you're cheating me out of my right to lead. Now, why would you cheat me out of my right to lead? In that, you see the proof that I'm right. Proof, pro-of, profound. You're supposed to procreate, not concrete and concreate. In the concrete jungle. In the Cretan, right? A Cretan is like an insult. I say, you Cretan. In the Crete tradition, or the Greco-Roman tradition, the feudal tradition of taking slaves, of abusing people, of controlling people to the point where they just have sex with them, like these people in corporations and these churches. Why is this happening? Because people worship the principles of evil, whether you believe in the devil or not. The devil is a play on words for evil. And the D can refer to, excuse my French, the penis. Your reproductive cycle. Who do you sleep with and why? The Prince Humperdinks and Lex Luthors and their staff and the people they throw a bone to, quote unquote, a bone? The gun is a phallic symbol? Is that a coincidence? Am I reaching too much? No. You think Republicans don't have a dating culture? You think Democrats don't have a dating culture? You think that part of dating quite often is the gun culture? They try to act macho in their truck and their big gun. Now, I'm not saying you can't have a truck or a big gun. But hopefully you consider other people and you consider, how much gas you're using. You limit your trips. You move efficiently. Maybe you consider a high big vehicle. Okay, but do I care if you have a truck or not? Do I care if you own an AR? I care if you're moral. I care if you have a noble character. But you got to look at your cultures. You're letting these trivial things distract you from what matters most, including the mass shooting itself. All these mass shootings together are not killing anywhere near as much as your indifference, which is a contributing factor. And arguably the determinant when it comes to 9 million people, 3 million of them children, starving to death a year or dying of hunger-related issues. If you saw them all die at once, 9 million people in front of you, would you care? They're starving. Why don't you help them? So it's okay if you can't see them in front of you at the same time? What about for the next 10 years? 90 million people. Why don't Americans care about this? Why isn't this in our front and center in our culture? Why isn't it at the UN? Why doesn't the United Nations pass a global wealth tax to build farms? And it's easier to grow food and cheaper to grow food in underdeveloped nations. Keep that in mind. Okay? In these underdeveloped nations. Why do they do things in a way that allows for this many people to die? If you make it clear to the underdeveloped nations that you'll invade them, not every nation is Afghanistan, mind you, that you'll invade them if they don't secure the food program, if they try to steal the food or interfere. They're not going to resist you. The vast majority of leaders of underdeveloped nations do not have a death wish. They don't want to take on all the nations in the world at the same time. So why aren't they doing that? Why aren't they telling the truth about things? Why doesn't any nation have a moral order? What the hell is going on here? You're not asking the right questions, and your hearts aren't in the right place, and you're following the crowd. See my playlist about proof that I'm Christ. And ask yourself, what does it mean for the Lord to be a warrior? Exodus 15:3. What does it mean for the heavenly warrior to defeat the beast? Revelation chapter 19. 1 Samuel 17. What does it mean for when David says, this day I will strike you down and cut off your head, and the whole world will know that there's a God in Israel? How will they know there's a God in Israel? If God isn't the God of martial arts, monotheistic, universal pinpoint and moral precision in monotheistic martial arts. And if he is, then I'm his son. Who would I be if I'm not that? I must be Christ, the Christos, the anointed top martial arts ever possible, and my legal and peaceful outdoor sparring challenge that I have since 2013. Now 2024. For you know it will be in 2025, where I offer you $10 million. I raised it to $100 million if I'm compensated for them persecuting me, mind you. If you win, pay nothing. If you lose, $50 if you just to show, $60,000 if I'm not compensated. Why is this challenge not all over the news? Why aren't my arguments all over the news? Is it not their job to tell you that this guy has the most logical argument as to the nature of Christ and who is Christ and being Christ ever? And is this top martial arts challenge? Countless churches and martial art, all the major martial artist groups, judo, jiu-jitsu, taekwondo, karate, have had representatives that concede my point, that I'm the top martial artist ever possible. The Kiro Obi, the black belt. Obi is Igbo spelled backwards. Igbo is my father's tribe. Obi in Igbo means king, heart, hut, essence, center, temple, core. Obi in Japanese and in martial arts means the belt, a sign of rank. Why isn't this all over the news? And do you really think that that's magically not connected to the fact that people are gunning people down because of their ideology, because of their culture, because of their philosophy, because of the group communication, the collective communication of Americans who treat people unfairly? The school system is structured to favor certain types of learning and certain types of thinking. Dating is controlled. They control the dating far more than you think. I have a degree in information technology. I'm not the expert on information technology, but I have a degree in it. And I can tell you with certainty, Tinder, Plenty of Fish, OkCupid, you name it, they're corporate agenda enforcers. And dating is controlled. Try having a real conversation with a female and see what happens. Try telling them about universal pinpoint and moral precision. Try telling them about God and martial arts. Try telling them about me and see what happens. So many of them are in cults and social clubs and police groups and military groups and corporate groups and political groups and on and on and on. And all of them are being brainwashed to pretend that truth magically isn't true. They'll have no viable counterargument for the fact they should be following me and not who they're following, and they will not change course. And they'll probably stop talking to you. They'll say, can we talk about something else or some bitch shit like that? That is the state of the union. And I tell you, something that's very difficult for people to hear and accept in their hearts and souls, no one should have kids no matter what. They've passed a certain point of no return. I am Christ, I am back. And the Bible is written in a way that's confusing and I don't approve it, nor do I approve of the Torah or the Quran. No offense to anybody. Everyone who goes to learn about God should have no doubt in their mind about the Royal African Falcon top martial arts order. Why don't they? Not only do they not know it already, but when I say it, some of them probably doubt that I'm telling the truth. Because of those institutions and religions and all the other ones as well. They were taught wrong. They were led astray, astray. They don't know about the fact that Bethlehem has the word belt in it for a reason. Lilith, ill hit, thief, hit fee. Why does it constantly go back to hit? And the word Bel isn't built because Bel is trying to cheat me out of my right to lead, and the T is a feminine suffix. I've proven that in my story playlist. You have to understand the situation here. Live in reality. Don't go into a trance-like state, with your religions and New Age groups and your atheist groups. You're in some kind of trance, some kind of scientific trance, philosophical, religious, you name it. Transcend. Transcend. The difference between Egypt in its glory versus Rome when it killed Christ is Rome values gold. Egypt values the afterlife and preparing yourself, your whole life, to meet your maker in universal truth, not white, Jewish, or LGBT supremacy, or tribalism, or any other racial supremacy, or anything like that, but in potent, universal truth. Universal pinpointing, trying with all your heart to pinpoint it. Search for wisdom as if you're searching for silver and gold. You who are gold diggers, search for it. Seek ye first the kingdom of heaven. The kingdom. The throne is established in righteousness, Proverbs 16:12. Isaiah 16:5, I believe it is. I seek the cause of justice. I speed the cause of righteousness and justice. Passionately pursuing it, which sets me apart. You see everyone else not passionately pursuing it, they're just playing the game, and you see me passionately pursuing it. Don't you think you should hear what I have to say, even if you think that I'm wrong? The things that I'm saying go beyond what everyone else says. Don't you think you owe me to hear me out, at least, and see my proof that I am the idea that Christ is superimposed on playlist? I'll put the link in the description. Thank you.